From the Fatheads Eyewear Studio in Indianapolis, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Maybe I need to start in the trash truck business.
Don't rule it out.
But the steering is spokes on the wheel straight ahead. The steering's broken. Bridges takes the wheel and he goes, whoa, whoa.
He's airborne, and then I'm above him.
Inverted.
All at the same time. Yeah, you're just like, wow, that's a wild picture.
He gets behind the race car and he tells me if I'm good or not, and if I'm good, he'll go, perfect.
I hang up on the guy. I go, who's this? This is Deion Sanders. I go, yeah, nice try. See you later.
Bounce and then this insane roll. That thing sent it.
I hate qualifying. It's the worst. It's literally the worst thing you could ever do.
But I'm smooth and creamy like milk chocolate. Have you ever not saw a Hershey bar that did not look good?
Hi, I'm Tony Stewart.
I'm Mario Andretti.
I'm Johnny Rutherford.
I'm Angel Sampe.
I'm Travis Pastrana.
This is Antron Brown.
Hi, I'm Sebastien Bourdais, and this is The Skinny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Skinny. We're here in Indianapolis, Indiana. It is race week here in Indy, as the IMSA Series will join us here at the Speedway, of course, running the road course. I'm Ken Stout. That guy sitting right alongside will be the subject here. Great to have him in the studio, Sebastien Bourdais. What an accomplished driver. And, of course, as always, we have the track dude over there, Mr. Michael Young, running the controls.
Doing my thing.
If you're not familiar with Seb, I think everybody in the racing world is certainly familiar with him. But let me run off just a couple of things. We don't have time in the show to rattle them all off. Four-time Champ Car World Series champ, 2002 International Formula 3000 champ, 1999 French Formula 3 champ, 2014 Rolex 24 of Daytona overall winner. Big one there for sure. 2017 Rolex 24 at Daytona GTLM class winner. Vicious racing in the day. 2016, the 50th anniversary of this one, by the way, 24 Hours of Le Mans with the LM GTE class winner. 2015, 2021, 12 Hours of Sebring winner. 2003 Kart FedEx Championship Series Rookie of the Year. And that's probably just scratching the surface, dude. What a career, bud.
One of you.
You have won a few. I think it was it 31 Champ Car, Champ Car wins, 31 Champ Car wins and 6 or 7 IndyCar wins.
Yes, 30. Yeah, I'm not very good
Total
at stats.
of 37. It's honestly what I looked up, and I was on your page actually. It looked like 31 Champ Car wins and 31 poles. Funny how those numbers always seem to be
I know
very
that was
close.
31 and 31 for 73 races, and then after that in the IndyCar stuff, there's not so many, so I didn't really. But I think you're right. It might be 37 in total.
Incredible career on the pole a couple of times at Le Mans for Peugeot. Great sports car career as well, man. You have really accomplished a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really fortunate, obviously, to end up in winning programs and get awesome opportunities to work with awesome people in great cars. And yeah, I mean, it was my passion before it became my job, and it's still my passion. So can't really complain about anything.
So when people come in the show, we tend to always go back, how'd you get to where you are now? Where'd you start off at? And doing a little bit of homework on you, I didn't realize your father was a sports car racer. So you're born in France, and your dad's racing cars. Was it a pretty obvious path early on?
No, not really. I mean, so my dad was racing like hill climbs and gymkhanas and stuff like that before I was born. And then took a little break when I was born to build the family house, and then resumed like I was 1 or 2, something like that. And yeah, so then I pretty much grew up on racetracks after that, because he started manufacture cups like the Renault cups and the Peugeot cups and the Citroën cups and whatever. He was eventually a French champion in '91. With Renault, and then finished second in the European Championship a couple times after that. And yeah, so just spent a ton of time on racetracks. And then back then, I basically got a motorcycle. I was 3 years old, because he never got one, and it was like, that was dumb. So I'm gonna correct that. So I got a motorcycle. I was 3. and then I pretty much always had an ATV at the track, which was also like the cart puller for like all the toolboxes for the mechanics and tires and stuff. So whenever my dad was not running, I was on the ATV burning gas and terrifying everybody around paddocks and dusting everybody. So you can gauge my popularity. It wasn't very high back then. And yeah, just, really pretty much at this point already fell in love with motorized stuff. And I got in a go-kart rental at Albi, which was a South track in France. And really fell in love with go-karts right away and begged my dad for 2 or 3 years to get go-kart racing. And he really kind of tested the waters there a little bit, made sure that it wasn't a fluke, just trying to be like daddy. And then, eventually I got a go-kart and it all went from there from 10 years old. Being a repeat of 66, a Ferrari Ford battle.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. Innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to The Skinny. We're here in Indianapolis, Indiana. We have Sebastien Bourdais in the studio with us. Great to have him here as well. Born in Le Mans, France. Did I say it right?
Yeah, you did.
In the American way, we always tear it up, man. But as I was reading that and listening to you talk, and obviously Michael comes up with great questions, and he's done this for years whenever we're at commercial break. He's magical at it. But he asked you a great one here. Being born in Le Mans, how far away from the track were you?
Yeah, about 5 minutes from the Mulsanne corner. A little bit over there, just to cross Mulsanne, but super, super close.
Is that your best corner at the track now?
Yeah, I don't know. I used to take it counter direction pretty much coming from the south, but it's obviously such a different scenery when the track just kind of all of a sudden appears. Guardrails get put up, fences get put up, and next thing you know, it looks like a racetrack. But
so
it's not like that every day.
What's it like for a young kid, say in your teens now, and the week or couple of weeks of Le Mans are going on, and you're hearing the best race cars in the world go zinging by?
So it's actually funny because the Le Mans interest really only kind of grew and became a real presence when my dad did it for the first time. Because until then, we'd go sometimes to just watch on the outside of Indianapolis and just go at night practice and stuff like that. But we didn't even really go for the race itself. Like, just kind of watch the cars around. And my dad always kind of had that idea that he was, never going to race at Le Mans. And then he got an opportunity to race at Le Mans. And then I discovered the race from the inside, from the garage, and what it really meant. That was 93. So I was 14. So, at that point, it's like, okay, all right, now I get it. And at that point, then it became like, well, man, that'd be pretty cool. Like I was racing go-karts, just about to transition to cars. And it was one of those where you're like, yeah, that'd be pretty awesome to race in that one.
Yeah, I'm all in on this one, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. So let's fast forward a little bit. You have a ton of experience at this point, a lot of wins, a lot of championships. 2015, Ford makes an announcement that they want to get back into sports car racing for the first time in a long time. And 2016 is when they're going to make their debut. They're going to bring out the GTLM version. And if you go back to 1966, that's when they beat Ferrari at Le Mans. And you are going to have a chance to drive with Dirk Mueller and Joey Hand inside of one of these Fords and go over to Le Mans and make a run at it. Pretty exciting moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously when I got the phone call from Mike Hall asking me if I was interested in being part of that project. It was... we actually even discussed at some point just doing it full time because I wasn't quite sure what my future with KV at the time was going to be. The team was struggling a little bit financially and stuff, so I ended up keeping going with KVSH and Jimmy and Sully, and then just taking the endurance role with Dirk and Joey full time. But that was actually going to be my second in GT. My first one being in '99. which I guess that's probably kind of winding the clock back a little bit. That's pretty much where my dad, one of his biggest or yeah, I guess biggest, but one of the few regrets that he has that we didn't get to race together. He gave me a seat, but then we just didn't have the sponsorship to be able to pull it off and do it, the two of us. And then obviously went on to finish 3 times second at Le Mans with Peugeot, and then 16 happens, and then that opportunity to be part of history and the return, Ford's return to Le Mans was I guess I didn't really grasp the magnitude of the event, really. But when the family arrived and we all that big gathering, and it seemed a bit of a pipe dream, to be honest, because the start of the season was super challenging. We had reliability issues, and then come race day and we just have a rocket ship, and not everything went perfect, but the car was fast enough that we managed to recover from little incidents and technical issues, and obviously came to win it, and it was just incredible to be part of that event with the family.
Yeah, a daunting task. First of all, who was in there? There was Porsche was in there, BMW was in there, Corvette was in there, Ferrari obviously was in there, and I'm speaking of the GTLM class, probably more intense with the GTE category over at Le Mans, right?
Yeah, it was Aston as well. I mean,
Aston.
it was all factory efforts with privateer teams operating, but like mostly just factory efforts, and fierce competition. And it ended up being a repeat of '66, a Ferrari Ford battle all the way to the end. So I don't think anybody could have scripted it any better than that.
I just wonder, you're caught up in your career, you're scrapping, and it's funny when you look back at a career now that you've been so successful, you maybe can take a breath and look back and say, wow, that's pretty cool stuff. But when you're in the midst of it, you're just fighting for the next day. You're not really thinking about, like you said, the magnitude of the situation. But whenever you get over there and you see those people show up, it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is a little bit different.
Yeah, and GT racing is very, very particular, and particularly at Le Mans, it's a low downforce situation. The car moves around a lot, and when you're coming from IndyCar, both Dixie and I were having obviously a little bit of an adaptation period, and we also came in super late. We arrived on Tuesday morning, I think. Because we're caught
because
up.
you were over here. Were you over here?
Because we were caught up in the Texas weather situation. The race had been eventually pushed back to a couple months later or something like that after the red flag. It was crazy, man. And for me, when I show up at Le Mans like that last second, the whole of the local press and everything just gets on me, and I didn't really get my head out of the water the whole week. Basically, we arrived. You go through the day, night is short because the next morning you get the first briefings on Wednesday morning, and then you're in the car or you at the track until at least 1 a.m. because back then practice finished at midnight. I mean, I think both Scott and I were just absolutely destroyed before the event even started.
Wow.
So it was definitely
and I didn't even think about it being your hometown and the fact that media's coming at you there. I mean,
it was crazy. And obviously being in that scenario, with the return, being associated to Ford, and it was mental. So yeah, it was a super, super trick week. And, to have that result at the end was just fantastic.
Those 2 years, was it kind of like going back home? Those tracks after knowing them?
It was like going through hell.
You're looking at the driver for the Cadillac racing team and Chip Ganassi Racing. His name is Sebastien Bourdais. Extremely good at what he does. I have to thank him here, officially, in public, for helping me, him, along with his partner, Rico van der Zand, and the rest of the Cadillac team, help me earn my first ever IMSA win, ever. But to have it done as an overall and a DP car is certainly very cool, as he did that last year at Laguna. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. It was a whole Ranger, so. It just, like most sport, it was a man's possessed. He just went through the field and was like, all right, yep, I've had it, bud.
You, dude, you can throw a lap down with anybody out there. Obviously, you don't need much spotting whenever it comes to qualifying, so I have a great opportunity to watch you do what you do. And Laguna, I mean, it's happened at a number of places where I'll see you run, and we'll have the qualifying session, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and there will be about 2 minutes left, and suddenly Bourdais shows up and throws one down, and boom, to the top of the charts he goes.
Yeah, I very much enjoy qualifying. To me, that's the purest form of racing. Just going after the little details on setup and finding the perfect balance for what you want to do, and just feeling the tire kind of build up grip and feeling one with the car and just throwing one down. That's super satisfying. Like, obviously racing's awesome, don't get me wrong, but like just when you really after details and execution, it's about as pure as it gets. And I guess I really related to the way Senna used to be in his approach, and I really related to that. And yeah, when I got to experience it myself, that was definitely one of the highlights of the weekend.
As you look at your career, you bring up Senna, so we have to talk about some of the F1 days. But as you look at your career, you were in Champ Car, then you went to Formula One for a couple of years, and then morphed back over here to IndyCar. Was there one that was more significant? Was Champ more significant, or IndyCar to developing you as a driver, or Formula One? Was there one that you felt like really helped you get better?
I think I was pretty formed by the time I got to Champ Cars, which is the reason why it got so successful so quickly. I think all of the years at La Filière with Elf was really both in like what is now Formula 4, to Formula Renault, to Formula 3. When I got to Formula 3000, there was no practice sessions. It was qualifying right away on tracks you didn't know, and then you had a couple laps to make it happen.
And no sims back in the day.
No sim whatsoever. So I think with all of those experiences, with pretty much unlimited testing in Formula Renault, Formula 3 with Elf, developing new cars, doing that with Henry Pescarolo as well on the prototype side. And then Formula 3000, by the time I made it to the US, I had a lot of experience for a 23-year-old. I had developed many cars, been on track countless days, on very different tracks, doing very different things. So once I got to the US, you kind of already had the finished product, and the rest, I guess obviously you never really stop learning, but the foundation was very much there.
So 2008, 2009, is it Scuderia? You went to drive for in Formula One, Toro Rosso, and those 2 years, was it kind of like going back home? Those tracks after knowing them?
It was like going to hell. Yeah, I mean, it was a very, very tough experience. Obviously, you spend your whole career hoping, trying to get to F1, and you make it a goal. And obviously, I got there on the heels of winning just about everything there was on the Champ Car side, and
yeah, you were fresh off of 4 back-to-back championships.
Yeah, and obviously working with more than a family, more than a race team, and we had built such a tight group over there, and yeah, I arrived in F1, and initially they said they were looking for a leader and they needed direction and development and stuff, and then I arrived, and Vettel was already signed up, and they really didn't need any of what they signed me for. They were not doing the development. The car was made by Red Bull Technology, who was making the car really for Red Bull Racing, who were using a Renault engine. We were using a Ferrari. So different installation, different weight distribution, different everything. And it just became very apparent super fast that I was going to be in trouble, because pretty much the car was the car. They were not in a position to make any development, good, bad, or indifferent, as far as my driving style, which is quite particular, and I don't do very well at driving any cars. And that's what they needed. They needed a guy that could jump in the car, and regardless of what the developments would do to the balance, just pull 100% out of whatever the car was that day. And that wasn't me.
So clearly you saw that developing early on, and it was not going to be a situation or good situation. How quickly were you trying to get on the phone? Were you trying to morph back over here to IndyCar?
Yeah, I mean, I did. At the end of 2008, I knew I was in trouble. Obviously, I mean, not that we had a terrible season. I think I was 6 out of the last 7 races in Q3. But Vettel was flying, and I as soon as the new car arrived, like the first 4 or 5 races, we had the old car, and it was pretty much 3-2 in qualifying and very closely matched because back then the car was a little bit more adjustable. You could do things. And then the new car came out, and it was just a disaster for me. And so right away, it was a much higher potential car, and Vettel started to deliver some awesome results. We were, first and fourth on the grid in the wet at Monza, where he ended up winning the race. My car stalled on the grid, funny enough. But yeah, I mean, and it was just it seemed like it was ill-timed because nothing worked out. We're fourth, 2 laps to the end on the first race in Australia. Drive shaft failure. Every time something seemed to be coming up, it's like we're fourth again in Spa. A couple laps to the end, starts raining. We finished 7th. That starting spot at Monza, just a glimpse of little kind of good results, maybe
Moments of brilliance,
and then
Yeah.
slipping away. So at that point, it was like when I got the offer for a fraction of the money to keep going for 2009 with Toro Rosso, it was more by default because I didn't have anything, and then it went even worse with the slick tires. Front tires went way bigger, rear tires were smaller. Mechanically, the car was even harder to drive for me, and it was it. So big reset button, and it was very hard to kind of get thrown out that way and stuff, but at the same time it was kind of a relief, and then started full-time with Peugeot for a couple of years, and yeah, the rest is history. Which that was the only shame for me, because I love racing with him, and then it became just plain straight painful.
You're looking at the Fatheads Eyewear Studio. We're here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Welcome back to the Skinny. We have Sebastien Bourdais on the show with us, affectionately known as Seb, currently driving in the GTP ranks, if you will, of the IMSA series here in town in Indianapolis. Lives in St. Pete, but here in Indianapolis as the IMSA series has made its way here. Just a couple of races yet to go here in the 2024 season. This will be one of them. We go back endurance racing again, a 6-hour here, and then obviously we finish up at the Petite.
Yep. 6 and then 10 hours, so got quite a few hours to go until the end of the season.
I'm going to put you on the hot seat right here. I kind of forgot about this, but since we just brought it up, what does 2025 look like? Have they made any announcements? Do you know if you even have a job?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty good idea. Nothing signed, but I have a pretty good idea. So should be hopefully more Cadillac, but
oh yeah,
gotta see how that works out.
Yeah, I didn't know. So I thought the Cadillac program for Ganassi was going away. Is that correct? What can you say? What can't you say?
Yeah, I mean, that's about the extent of what I can say. But yeah, obviously, Chip Ganassi Racing has unfortunately lost the program, and been working quite hard to find another program. But so far, nothing came to fruition. So yeah, it's definitely not an ideal position.
So you two were chatting here once again off camera about some racing there a little bit earlier. Michael, care to pick it up?
Some of my favorite moments, and when you look at open wheel racing, one of the greatest rivalries of all time was during Seb's Champ Car career, he and Paul Tracy. And it was, I would tune in, obviously I was a big Seb fan, but just to see how these things would unravel. And
what's going to happen this weekend?
Exactly. And
who's going to get the knockout punch?
and you mentioned how much, did you like driving against PT and some of the great moments?
I mean, to be honest with you, like that was some of the best racing I've had. In 2003, I just arrived. It was pretty much supposed to be PT and Bruno, and it ended up being PT and me for the most part. You know, Bruno just ended up in the championship fight because he was super consistent, but he really didn't have a super flashy year. He struggled with the setup of the car. I absolutely loved the car right away. And yeah, I mean, we just kept fighting with PT. I had 5 poles that year. Probably would have won maybe a couple more if we didn't have as much luck as we had, and we were just always fighting. It wasn't, let's put it this way, Champ Cars density wasn't super high. It was like 6 cars pretty much week in, week out that could win races, not like now where you got half of the field that can come out and win just about any race. So chances were we were going to be around each other a lot, and we sure were. And it was awesome fights, super respectful, good hard racing. He won a bunch, I won a few, and all of that happened and was fine until really Miami, where he took us out. Just PT being PT, kind of losing a little bit towards the end of the season. Just, I guess, there was quite a bit of pressure. He had not won the championship yet over so many years of trying, being total like championship material. Like, I mean, there was no arguing that he was the guy. But then at the same time, it always kind of find a way to throw it away. And so I think it just kind of started that way. And then he took us out, and he was totally expecting me to retaliate. And somehow I didn't. I went to him and I'm like, man, that's just not the way I race. Like, and something happened in Surfers because I was instructed to let Bruno by at the start and get away from the championship fight. And then I was on pole. So I let Bruno by at the chicane in Surfers, and Paul just goes with him. I don't know where to go. So he just spins himself around my front tire and bends my suspension, which makes me crash later when it starts raining, but whatever. And then, it all went bananas from there. And in 2004, I avoided the punches like pretty much every race, won the championship, came out, and at the end of 2004, I went to him and I said, listen, man, this is it. The whole year I drove, eyes in the mirror, being conscious of how aggressive you are and driving around the problems and this and that and the other. I've won the championship too now. You want to have at it? Fine. And he stayed on the side of the road about, I think, 4 or 5 times that year. Like we had contacts all the time, and somehow I survived most of them, and it just escalated everything. And then, obviously, being French, not always super controlling of the language and the narrative, he was like just obliterating me in the press, and with the way he manipulated a little bit the Canadian press and stuff, and it became really toxic. And to me, it took away a lot of the fun, which that was the only shame for me, because I love racing with him, and then it became just plain straight painful, which was a shame. But obviously, it was great for the fans. The series really needed it because we were starving for attention. And it was great, except for me, I guess, at that point.
Want to get the skinny on other guests and different types of motorsports? Check out our YouTube page and get the skinny. The Skinny is brought to you by American Coach. American Coach, innovation is our life force. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since 2004.
Welcome back to the Skinny. This is the Fatheads Eyewear studio. We have Mr. Sebastien Bourdais in the studio with us, having a good time as well, and love the relationship between him and Michael Young over years and years. So it's been a good time to get him in here, a tough competitor. And Michael, you said you had a couple more here.
There's so many good memories with Seb. So he wins in Toronto. What was that, 2014?
Yeah, the first one in IndyCar, yeah.
Right. So he wins, and I'm doing public address. So I am there reading the top 3, doing the podium, victory podium celebration. So we get to the point of presenting the winner's trophy, and they're beautiful Waterford crystals, these beautiful trophies. And they had set them on these little bases. So the Waterford sits on a little base.
That's not one I want. That's my first.
No, that wasn't. That was
my first podium, I think, with Japensky, with Dragon. That was 2013 or 2012, actually.
I could have swore you won this one.
No, when the trophy happened to fall off, because he gave me a 2-piece trophy with one hand.
Right.
And I shook his hand, and I was like, right away, I saw that thing go like,
yeah, well, I know that.
But that was 2012.
Okay,
that one was 2012.
Because Dario was third, and he tried to catch it with his toe.
No, not even. He went like...
He kicked it.
It was like, sorry, buddy. Didn't work.
But it was a $40,000 trophy that went. Did you ever get that
Well, it's
replaced?
a unique one. Did you glue
So-
it back together?
No, so actually, funny story about that. So I got a replacement, and Jay kept the original one, which was significantly smaller because it was basically the glass base and whatever was not.
But it comes
I've
with a
not
better
followed up.
story.
It definitely, it's original. That one's no way to replicate that one.
No, zero.
I mean, it. The funny part is that it did not shatter on the steel steps of the podium, but then as soon as it hit the top, the pavement, it went.
Hey, man, I'm going to shift gears because there's no way you're going to come on the show and we're not going to talk about it. 2017.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was scared for a minute. It's okay. It's
Yeah,
a
I
racing deal.
was like, what are we going to talk about now?
2017, you're driving for Dale Coyne. You're out there at the Speedway. You're making noise, man. The two fastest laps that had been run in qualifying at that point on that day,
In a long time.
231 miles an hour. And boy, when things went wrong, they went wrong in a big way.
Yep.
No, you give me more than that.
You
I
know,
mean, let's reenact a little bit for the fans that are at home. You're coming through. Is it turn 2?
yeah. I mean, you have to just like set the stage a little bit because obviously
Oh, see.
never
Now we got
really
him.
never been in that position before where I've really had a legit winning car. Like obviously we built the program thanks to Dale at that point with Craig Hampson and Olivier Boisson. Craig Hampson, the Newman Ass days. We used to work at Andretti at that point before that. And then Olivier was my race engineer at KVSH for 14, 15, 16. Really good friend and great engineer. And we just assembled, that group of guys, the three of us going to Dale Coyne Racing and trying to make something happen. And we had just enough money to put something pretty cool together. And Olivier's damper knowledge and Craig's aero knowledge just all put together with our wizard Arturo on the gearbox side and everything. And then next thing you know, we got the fastest thing there is out there from the Tuesday start, first day of practice, all the way through. And so, yeah, and I get in the car with 2 setups. First day was good. Like we're strong in the strongest cars, but nothing crazy. And then we put the second setup on the car, and I can do whatever I want, and it's never ever happened to me at Indy. And so at that point, I remember doing the group run at the end of the day, and starting like P10 or whatever in the pack, and within 5 or 6, 7, 8 laps, whatever, we're in the lead, and slide back, same thing within 10 laps. And at that point, everybody's like, what the hell is going on with Bourdais? Like, he's never really been anything special at the Speedway, and this year he's just on fire.
I mean, the whole program, and Dale Coyne as well. I mean, loved Dale Coyne, but never really a front runner.
And Ed Jones was rookie at that point, and everything was like, oh, those guys look really strong. And so we start trimming the car out, and I haven't turned right a single time in the whole week, and the confidence is through the roof. Craig seems to be completely in control of the trim list. We got everything figured out, and then conditions get a little tricky for Saturday with some rain, big interruption. Are we going to qualify or not? Not sure. And that's on the heels of being super comfortable on Fast Friday, turning a 2:33 something in practice, fastest lap of the month. And so, we go on the quali run, and like, I haven't been not flat, and I haven't turned right in a single time. The throttle pedals all the way towards me. It's got the smallest return spring you can think of. It's like almost a bit of a taunting game with the guys, like I always had a little bit of a shaky foot in qualifying attempts and stuff, and Like, are you going to hold it? Like, just as a flat line for 4 laps, that kind of, we started to disrespect the place. But long and the short of it, that's why.
Wow.
And I sure did as well. And on that Saturday, conditions got tricky, and we had a big mishap on the trim and the center of pressure, and we ended up running quite a bit too much front wing for condition correction and the trim that we were running, and the car didn't flinch for 2 laps. It was like same as it had been, flat out, just no issues, no warning, no nothing. And then I got into turn 1 on lap 3, and I was like, what was that? I turn in and thing just kind of freed up a little bit, and you can see on the video I'm pretty far from the apex at that point, but like, yeah, okay, well, let's not rush through things. I'll just come out of turn 2 and make an adjustment. Well, I never made it out turn 2. We burnt off the right rear tire in 2.5 laps, and yeah, I thought I had it all the way until I freaking obliterated myself in the wall. Caught it once, and then it went again in the middle of turn 2, and the wheel came off my hands and went straight up to the wall and hit the wall 100% throttle. Never even got my foot of the throttle. And yeah, got that record, 227 miles an hour, pretty much 3/4 of a hit. That was that. So.
And it was almost a head-on hit. We're going to take a quick break here. We're far from this subject, but stick with us. We'll be back on the other side, and we'll finish this one up. It was a massive hit at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Breaking your pelvis feels like somebody's kicking you in the nuts.
Welcome back to the Skinny. As we left you, we were talking about the big crash that Seb had at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway 2017 during qualifying, and he just walked us through what had happened there at the point of impact, really. And you can see the back end of the car. I wanted to come around, as he talked about before, had the quick hands to save it, really keep it from spinning around, but then it redirected on you, kind of death hooked, if you will. And
that would have been better if I had spun around for
yeah,
sure.
It probably would have, because when I watched it again, I was like, oh my goodness, dude, that was, and it was almost head on. I mean, about as close as you can get there.
Thankfully, it was like probably 20 degrees of impact or something like that, which otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it, because it was the highest speed and the longest duration of those kind of Gs. It was 118 Gs for 3/4 of a second, which that's not peak. Like, that's just like a steady, constant impact. And yeah, what got me, unfortunately, is the fact that it ruptured the top, because the wheel and the upright with the tethers got caught exactly perfectly around my pelvis and just busted the tub out. Like, all of the foam, the seat, the safety foam, everything kind of almost vaporized. And yeah, to break the pelvis and the hip like that, it was 10 tons of pressure. So
yeah, and a similar version to Hinch, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
but
you didn't get impaled that way, but you broke your pelvis.
Yeah. Like, at that point, it's like either the wheel disengages and goes over, which for Hinch was the case. The wheel didn't get trapped on the side of the car. But obviously he got the very unlucky end result of the suspension puncturing the tub. For me, there wasn't that. It was just the wheel just perfectly got caught and stayed in between the safer wall and the tub, and yeah, just completely punctured the tub.
What were the other injuries? You broke a pelvis?
Yeah, hip, femoral head, and then ribs, because again the tub just collapsed completely. So yeah, you're welcome. I was single-handedly responsible for the side crash structure and all of that.
So and fans at home, if you Google this and watch it, it's pretty easy to find, and you'll see.
If you type my name, it's still the first thing that comes up.
Massive hit. So as bad as this was, I've got to tell you, to me, and I've said this to you one time before, I don't know if you recall it or not, but matter of fact, I think you were eating dinner and I'd walked up to the table before I really knew you. But what blew me away was 72 days later at Mid-Ohio, you ran 80 laps in a race car.
Yeah, I think someone wasn't so impressed with that. Yeah.
I remember seeing you in the pool. I remember your recovery. You were digging. It was like you were some sort of superhuman being that recovered from some of the worst injuries we had seen. And you did it in the span of 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly like that was kind of like the first question when after surgery. It was Dr. Scheid, and I was like, "So what's the time frame, doc?" And he was like, "Well, that's 6 weeks for weight bearing, and that's 6 weeks on the dot. I was on my feet walking." The honestly like the hard part was like post crash until I got into the surgery on the surgery table, because I don't know if you know, but breaking your pelvis feels like somebody's kicking you in the nuts for about the whole time.
No,
From
I
the
don't
moment
know.
they get
I
you
do
off the
not
car
know.
to the moment they finally put you out. So I couldn't really wait for them to take me out. But yeah, it was that was the tough part. And after that, obviously, it was a bit of pain management on post surgery and all of the drug flushing out of your system and whatnot. But it really wasn't all that bad. I mean, the ribs actually were the biggest pain, because like you're on crutches, and then on top of it you have broken ribs. So that wasn't very good. But yeah, I mean, the whole focus was just like, let's put that behind you and get ready to get back in the car. Obviously, I never really planned on returning in the car racing for Gateway on the Novel. That was definitely the one thing I was trying to avoid. But the way the contractual situation was at DCR, if I didn't make it back that weekend, I wasn't going to finish the season. And that's definitely not what I wanted to do. So I wanted to put it behind me. I wanted to finish the season dealing with whatever remaining, press, doubts, whatever. And also just kind of putting myself back in the groove physically and in the wheel and behind the wheel, and yeah, finished the year and just restarted fresh in 18. All he wanted to be was just that normal guy and treated like such. And obviously very rarely had that, because it was such an icon.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach, innovation is our life force. Welcome back to The Skinny. We're, of course, with Sebastien Bourdais, kind enough to spend some time with us this week. And before we wrap up the show, I always ask Seb this, because I find it fascinating that he was able to live in this environment. Of course, I think some of the greatest team owners of all time, Paul Newman and Carl Haas. And do you miss those guys, Seb? I mean, what was it like to work with them as individuals? But I would imagine you got to be pretty close and part of, I guess, family with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, those days, obviously, you don't really grasp and value those times as much as you should when you're in it. It takes time to kind of reflect and really understand what happened and what you really had. And it was so much more than a race team. It was a family. Still have a relationship with a bunch of the guys at Newman Haas. And Carl had already pretty serious health issues, which nobody really knew, but everybody kind of knew that he was already fighting Alzheimer's, obviously. So he had these days. It was very kind of touch and go. Sometimes you could have a really perfectly normal conversation. Sometimes you couldn't. But then, being around Paul was just awesome. Like, he was there. He flew me back and stayed with us after Emma's birth. It was just, yeah, it was just incredible. Just things you got to share. We spent a Thanksgiving in New York with him. It was unreal. We sat at dinner the first time we met in St. Pete and had a genuine normal conversation about France and Le Mans and whatever for a couple hours. We were 23 and 21 years old, and all he wanted to be was just that normal guy and treated like such. And obviously very rarely had that, because it was such an icon. And it was just the coolest guy to be around.
A mega star that wanted to just be a race car driver and hang out with the guys.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty cool, man. Great career, dude. Spectacular career. You should be extremely proud of yourself. I'm sure you are. A humble dude, but
yeah, I hope it's not the end of the road, mate.
Yeah. No, apparently not. I mean, I tried to get that out of you. You won't give up too much, but it sounds like you'll be racing next year, so that's a great thing.
I'll be racing something next year.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. Thanks for putting up with me on the radio from time to time.
Anytime.
Didn't get a chance to tell that story. I told Michael earlier that at Daytona, I think I cleared you on the bottom. I kept telling you left side. And then when I saw the taillights, I realized you had stayed on the left side, coming back up on the NASCAR one. And you were like, so what was on my left? What was on my left? There was nothing there, just a row of campers.
Spotting at night at Daytona isn't exactly the easiest thing, so.
It's all good, but it's been an absolute pleasure for me to be part of a small piece of your career as well and working with you and Ringer. So look forward to more great memories. Thanks for taking the time, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the skinny on Mr. Sebastien Bourdais.